We have many heads, but we act as one. One legion with one will. And today, we're going lore accurate. With probably my least favorite legion, if speaking personally there, but a very interesting legion to say the least. It has a lot of depth and a lot of very unique culture to it that isn't really my speed, but leads to a lot of really cool storytelling and a very unique play style on the tabletop. So today we're going to dive into the Alpha Legion and talk about what it'll take to get them lore accurate for the tabletop. Today's video is brought to you by Tartary Press, my imprint that actually just launched a brand new website with a lot of cool new merch, including some merch for this channel, and the bundle is available for Forgotten Allegiance, and its 5-year anniversary coming up this year. You get all 3 books in the series signed by me for only $45 plus shipping. So make sure you go check that out. We've got some really cool t-shirts as well that have become available and were specially designed for this launch. So make sure you go check that out. It's www.tylertartar.com and get some of that cool merch for yourself, as well as signed copies of these amazing books. And let's get back to the video. In order to make sure that I am Alpharius, at least for this video, I had to do some deep diving into the lore. Horus Heresy does have some Alpha Legion stuff, but it never really gives us a lot of depth or structure to the Alpha Legion. We usually only see a couple Space Marines here, a couple more Space Marines there, and a lot of times it's revolving far more around their agents than the actual Space Marines. So I had to find a book that would give me that depth, and the one that really stuck out to me was Sons of the Hydra. It was a very interesting read. It was really, really cool and very well written, and gave a lot of twists and depths to show what the Alpha Legion actually looks like in Warhammer 40k. It includes adopting a lot of the Space Marines that may not want to actually embrace chaos, but can't be loyalist either. And that embracing and pulling them into the Legion gives a lot more character to what would normally be a very one-note Legion, and explains why not everyone is Alpharius anymore. It does also give us a lot more to work with character-wise and asset-wise, because a lot of these are going to be brought in from these different legions or scrounged from materials they either steal or trick out of the Imperium. And this combination is a really cool build that gives us a lot to work with. It also leads to a lot of chaos and deception when they're fighting for, a lot of times, the heretics. They're willing to fight alongside them to make little gains here and there and try and preserve Alpharius' original vision for what needs to happen in order to save the galaxy. Because as of right now, it's caught in a stalemate, balanced on a razor's edge between the two options that the prophecy told Alpharius. It's fascinating to see what lengths they'll go to as well. And I'm not going to spoil the book, but the amount of intrigue and maneuvering of their agents and all of the little things they do to really maintain as much secrecy as possible while also being giant Space Marines is very impressive. So let's dive into the actual list and talk about that further, because that's where a lot of our background lore is actually going to come out. The one thing I discovered during the Sons of the Hydra book is that a lot of the Alpha Legion has a very unique composition. They have a lot going for them in a lot of different directions, but their actual use of Space Marines is pretty limited. They rely heavily on agents and in some cases cultists. The best part of these cultists is most of them aren't actually human. They pull a lot from the Drukhari, they pull from the Eldar, they pull there's some reference to the Tau as well, and I believe there's actually a Votan reference in there, a single one. And there's even some Necrons that play agents to the Alpha Legion. So when you're building these lists, feel free to kit bash. If you've got just a rogue Necron somewhere, paint him up in the proper indigo armor paint and let him roll. He'll make a great addition to your cultists. If you've got extra Tau units or Votan units or whatever, they can be part of this. They're going to have to play by the cultist rules to be legal, but having them mixed in there isn't unusual. It's actually pretty common for the Alpha Legion, especially where they're tied to the Consortium and all of the different things that they have going. It's going to be pretty unique looking on the battlefield to actually see everything the Alpha Legion brings to the table with all of their different various agents. And I think that may be where the big asset comes. So the Warlord for this is going to be just a Chaos Lord. You can go different directions with the Chaos Lords here and pick one with a jump pack or on a bike or however you want to make this work. I went with a simple Chaos Lord because there's not really a reference to any other type of Chaos Lord in the book. In the book, they do have a few different Hero Masters, but every single one of them is referenced as just being in standard Space Marine armor. So I felt the just standard Chaos Lord would be the way to go. The big thing with the Hero Masters, they may have some of the Chaos trim. I don't foresee them having a lot of the spikes because the spikes will make them stand out a little too much. So you may have to do some trimming there to clean them up, or proxy from an actual just Space Marine unit to make it a little bit cleaner. That's up to you guys how you want to do that, but that's the direction I would go. The Chaos Lord as our Hero Master is our only actual Space Marine character in this army because he's only going to actually be a part of a smaller group of Space Marines. Most of it is going to come down to our cultists and our traders. So for this, I went with 3 different cultist firebrands to lead cultist units. These will give us a lot of advantages and a lot of different options when it comes to using cultists on the battlefield. And I also paired it with 2 Trader Enforcers. These Trader Enforcers, unfortunately, only come through our blooded kill teams. But the good news is we also have 2 units of Trader Guard, which are the rest of the blooded kill team. So in total, we just combine them into a single box. I did break them up on this list so that you have the actual playable battle orders that you're going to be looking at. But these units all come in one big box, so it's nice and easy to purchase and find, and it actually ends up being fairly inexpensive that way because you're using the entire box. If you had to just buy the box for the Trader Enforcer exclusively, it just wouldn't work. Now that we have those out of the way, we do have 6 units of cultist mobs. This is going to be where you can do a lot of kit bashing and just pulling in random units to fill out your cultist mob, because for the Alpha Legion, they don't care. They have mercenaries, they have random people they've picked up along the way. Their cultists aren't like the Devouts of Zeech or Slanesh or Khorne or Nurgle that are very specific in how they do things. The cultist mobs that work with the Alpha Legion are a death cult. They believe that their sacrifices are preventing the galactic death. They don't really worship any gods. They don't strive for anything except for to protect the galaxy from itself. And this cult leads to a very hodgepodge unique group where every single person believes something slightly different and goes about things slightly different as well. If you wanted to, you'd even throw an assassin in here. The story actually does include a Culexus assassin. That was a really fun addition to the story. It created somebody who was not really in the cult, but still had to operate with the cultists to fill in the story a little bit. On top of that, you are going to have 2 full bricks of legionaries. These legionaries will be kind of your backbone and your strength in this. You don't really have a lot of big shooty. You're going to have a lot of scattered units moving across the table to do objectives, and you're going to have to try and win this on points. Having different units at different parts of the board at all given times, sneaking around the edges to try and get in behind your opponent and steal objectives from him is probably going to be your best bet. Unfortunately, this list isn't going to be great against Horde armies because Horde army on Horde army doesn't usually end up well. You just end up with a lot of dead units on both sides. But this will be super effective on the more elite armies, like, say, my Dark Angels, that has a very small amount of units because we're running a lot of Terminators, Hellblasters, the Lion, a Dreadnought. It's going to be very hard to deal with all of these units at once and trying to clear the table of them, especially if you deploy them correctly. On top of that, you do have a squad of Chaos Terminators. The Alpha Legion actually has a very unique group of Terminators that are hyper specialized in, especially in demolitions and things like that. And I feel like having them in this list would be really, really fun to have at least some bulk here. In the actual book, these guys are not there, but they do pop up in a lot of other Alpha Legion stories that I've read throughout the Black Library. So I felt they would be an appropriate addition here as well. On top of that, you do have 2 squads of Raptors. The Raptors are actually pretty common in all of the stories. Alpha Legion enjoys them because they're able to move great distances and get in behind things very quickly, cutting things off or isolating different enemy units or just getting around them when they need to. So having 2 squads of Raptors here does make a lot of sense as well. Next, we do have the 2 squads of Traitor Guardsmen that we already talked about from the Blooded Box. They are really cool looking. They're pretty much brand new in Kill Team. So getting these guys and using them on the battlefield will be a lot of fun. Next, I did add 2 vehicles, mostly to give us some punch, as well as to transport some of our units around the board a little bit cleaner. I included 1 Chaos Land Raider and 1 Predator Annihilator. These 2 tanks are going to be your biggest punch you have to deal with the bigger things that you're going to run into, because with this list, if you have to try and deal with Angron or Magnus or Gilliman or maybe the Lion, you're going to be in a lot of hot water. So having these tanks to deal with it is going to actually make a difference. And on top of that, I did also include 5 sets of Alpha Legion bits. For this, I actually went exclusively to the Horus Heresy bits. The Alpha Legion bits that are available for 40k just weren't great looking. I didn't like them. But the heads and shoulder pads from Horus Heresy will work for this as well, especially since you're only using just standard Space Marine dimensions. It'll also let you eliminate some of the spikiness that can get in the way of looking like the Alpha Legion when it comes to some of these Chaos Space Marine units. So that brings us to the end of the list. Let's go to talk about how much this is going to cost to build. This one might actually surprise you. For a Hordier army, this one is actually fairly cheap. So the Alpha Legion isn't actually a very expensive army to build, surprisingly. Usually Horde armies will hit you in the wallet pretty hard, but the Alpha Legion, even at full retail, isn't bad. It's one of our few sub $1,000 on the value total as well. So let's talk about the retail first. Just as a reminder, we break this down into 3 categories. Retail based on Warhammer.com. This is full MSRP, which you should never actually buy at unless you have to. The second, we have the value total, which is based on Wargame Portal and Amazon, which are the 2 best retailers I've found for myself in the United States. I've heard other places like Element Games in the UK and other stores can provide you really good discounts as well. So make sure you check those out. And then finally, we end with a fluffy total. The fluffy total is the total we'd need if we used a bunch of heresy bits and heresy proxies to build out an army that looks as Alpha Legion as possible. So first, let's establish the baseline and talk retail total. The retail total, like I said, isn't actually too bad. I've seen considerably worse doing these more accurate lists. It's going to run you $1,058.50. So a little over $1,000 for the straight retail list. Not too bad. Now, if you get all of your discounts involved and try and push down that cost, it's not going to go as well as I'd like, because you do have a couple Kill Team units in here that drive up the cost. And I couldn't actually find a lot of discounts on specifically the Predator Annihilator. So those 2 things drove up the retail or the value cost. putting us at $931.52. So you saved a little over $100, about $120 to be exact, which isn't chump change, but it doesn't save you as much as a lot of the other routes would. For this one, I definitely would recommend looking at some value boxes. There's been some decent value boxes for Chaos Space Marines released lately that will have some of your Legionaries and your Raptors and a Chaos Lord, and as well as some of your cultists all in one place. So checking those out and finding out where you can get those at a better discount is absolutely something I'd recommend. Combat patrols are always valuable as long as they have the units you're looking for. I did not include those in these costs because combat patrols do tend to change frequently enough that it would not make this video age well if I did. But I do suspect that you could probably drive this down into the $600-700 range pretty easily using third-party vendors, eBay, your local game store, and using these bundle boxes as well. So next we're going to talk the fluffy list. To make this list fluffier, we're going to want to proxy 3 different units in here. First is going to be our Chaos Lord. The Horus Heresy Alpha Legion Praetor is way cooler than a Chaos Lord. It was an easy choice. And he actually costs the same amount. So picking him up and running him, if you really wanted to and to spend a little bit more money, you could actually get the named character for the Alpha Legion, whose name escapes me at the moment, and proxy him in there. But I would just go with the Praetor and run with that. Next, I did proxy the Chaos Terminator Squad. Because the Horus Heresy Chaos Terminator Squad, I'm going to throw a picture up probably over here so you can see the difference. And finally, I went with a proxy for the Chaos Predator Annihilator. The Heresy Chaos Predator Annihilator is actually cheaper than the 40k Predator Annihilator. It was really weird, but it was that way. And honestly, with the Predator Annihilator, I actually found it cheaper on Warhammer.com than I could on any of the other sites. For some reason, it was $10 more expensive on Amazon. I couldn't find it on Wargame Portal. And on Warhammer.com, it was $75 versus about $86 on Amazon. So I don't know why, but it was just cheaper that way. So the pivoting to the Heresy one that's $5 cheaper than the 40k one was a no-brainer at all. It also looks better, I think. So those would be the units I would proxy. And because this entire time for the bits I'm using the Heresy stuff, I would just continue to use those as well to give me the very Alpha Legion heads and pauldrons. So that total brings me to $1,005.20. So it's actually one of the cheapest fluffy lists we've ever had as well, which very much surprised me. I did not suspect the Alpha Legion would be. But it works. It really does. And from what I've heard, lists like this have actually been pretty successful in tournaments as well. I would definitely do your research and make adjustments as needed, but maybe this will give you a good baseline if you want to be an Alpha Legion player. Next, let's talk about the paint scheme for the Alpha Legion and, more importantly, your cultists, and get you back to the tabletop. So now that we've got the list and the prices, let's talk about painting. Because painting Alpha Legion is probably the most complicated part of all of this. The Alpha Legion throughout all of the novels, both in the Horus Heresy and in 40k, are described as having different armor colors almost every single book. This leads to additional chaos and confusion as to what they actually look like. The most common references for color that we hear are teal, blue, like a light blue, maybe even a blue-green to a seafoam green color. But you also hear a lot of indigos, purples, blacks, and bare metal. So this leads to a lot of variety that you can use. I've also seen a lot of these done with a two-tone shading where it goes from like a teal to an indigo and it shades across, or It balances weird in the light, and I think this leads back to a lot of the lore about the actual Alpha Legion armor. The Alpha Legion armor is supposed to be a mimetic camouflage type armor that reflects and refracts the light to allow them to pass either as bigger or smaller than they are, or disappear entirely. So this variety of shading may be exactly what you're looking for. So do what you think will be best on these. Next is going to be the human populace. And by human, I say that loosely, because if I were building this for myself, I would be grabbing a couple extra Necrons that I have kicking around, a couple of my spare Votan, some Drukhari, some Eldar, some Tau from my bits box, and build these guys out as best I can, and then paint them in a variety of different styles. I would do Eldar from a couple different craft worlds, Drukhari in a bunch of different fashions. I'd maybe grab some witches and an incubi. You could grab a couple Necron warriors and paint them after some of the different houses there as well, or try and hide them under cloaks. You can go a lot of really cool different routes with the actual cultists, painting them in the colors of some of the Space Marine legions, or in some of the Chaos Gods to allow them to infiltrate for the story reasons. And you just have a lot of fun with it. Go whatever direction you want to do different things you want to try, and don't feel like you need to fit them into a mold. Kind of like you would with the actual cultists of, say, the Thousand Sons, where you need to keep them very much in Tzeentch's colors. With all that said, you're going to have a really fun time trying to figure out the exact paint scheme you want to do for this army, but I have a feeling that when you're done, it's going to look spectacular. It's going to look very Alpha Legions, because none of your mob rabble is going to look like they belong somewhere. They're not going to look like an organized unit. They're just going to be a mob of people. And for the Alpha Legion, that's exactly what you want. You want your agents to be able to dissipate into the population and have no context as to who it is, except for maybe some keywords they can be used to activate them. One of the things I've heard at my local game store is a guy who keeps talking about wanting to do an Alpha Legion army, but paint them in different color schemes from different Space Marine legions and proxy in different actual Space Marine units to represent the Raptors and Legionnaires. By doing this, it will invoke a lot of the actual Alpha Legion feel, having them coming into this fight as if they had just gotten out of an infiltration, leading their agents out of the way and still cloaked in their false armor. But like I said, this is up to you. Have fun with it. And I'm sure you may have an idea as how you want to accomplish this if you're a big Alpha Legion fan and you want to play it. Okay, if you made it this far, make sure you guys like and subscribe. We have a lot of really fun videos coming out here in the near future. If you give it a little thumbs up, it goes a long way for us as well. We're also approaching 500 subscribers, which is super, super exciting, because once we hit 500 subscribers, I'll be able to actually share the merch with you guys on YouTube. And that's something I'm very excited for you guys to be able to see. I'm actually working on some different merch ideas for this channel specifically. And on top of that, in the description, you're going to find the links to both the cost list and to my actual army list, so you can see how I broke it down. And if you guys would suggest any changes or things you would rather see done, let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know which army you want to see done next in these lore accurate lists, as well as any other topics you want me to cover. I love talking about Warhammer 40k. I also love talking about different tabletop games and some video games like we've done lately. But I'm always open to what you guys want. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about, and I will happily do it and squeeze it in as soon as we can. Now, finally, we're going to talk tactics. Tactics for this one's going to be pretty straightforward-ish. We did go with the Deceptor's detachment. The detachment's designed specifically for the Alpha Legion and their ability of Master of Misdirection. This opened the door to an Alpha Legion army for the first time in quite a while when this was released. And a lot of people were very, very excited about this detachment, and it's proven to be very successful. So, like we've talked about earlier, the strategy is going to be pretty simple. You'll have a unit of cultists to screen your backline. They're more there to slow people down so you can get some of your bigger units back. Likely it'll be the Terminators and the Land Raider that'll move back and forth between the front line and your rear to protect it. The rest of the cultists and Trader Guard are going to be moving around and through, trying to snake into different objectives and accomplish any of the major tasks you're given by your cards to actually win the game by points. This army is not going to be playing to try and table somebody. It's just not going to do it. Your best opportunity to win is absolutely going to be through points. And honestly, if you play Alpha Legion, you're expecting that. That's what you play this for, is for this subterfuge and strategy, moving a bunch of different units around, hoping that your opponent forgets about the cultists that are on the far corner hiding behind that building there. So that when you get deploy teleport homers, you can get them into position quickly before your opponent can do anything about it. So that's the basic outline of strategy and what the lore accurate list looks like. Let me know in the comments below if you have any opinions and suggestions. I am not an Alpha Legion player, so let us know if you feel like I missed something or would like any other changes made, as well as what other legions or armies you would like me to do for this lore accurate list as well. And I will see you guys next time.